Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. We've got one of our sponsors on, which is Alta Copper. They've got a top 10 actual undeveloped copper project that is in the top 10 for grade and for low cost and a really good project. And we got Joanne Fries on today to talk about that. Joey, thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much for inviting me.
Top 10 in size and in what was the status?
Actually, it's top 10 in size for undeveloped large copper project and not owned by a major, and fifth highest for grade, tied for fifth highest in grade.
There you go. And those kind of projects there's not a lot of those out there these days, and we certainly need more of them in the copper space.
Yeah, we do, although the market doesn't seem to know that right now, but we know it's coming.
Yeah. Well, you're moving the project forward. You guys have done a lot of work. Your most recent stuff is some metallurgical work and community relations stuff. Why don't we start with the metallurgical work, Joey?
Sounds good. So at the end of the PEA in 22, or near, I should say, near the completion of that PEA, we did a resource calculation, had a resource calculation done for us by an independent, of course, and found that we already had 2.2 billion pounds of copper and 1.2 million ounces of gold, and we haven't finished drilling it off yet. So we thought that was noteworthy, added it to the news, of course, and published that, but it wasn't included in the mine plan. So then when we took up with Whittle to do an optimized PEA, of course, one big topic was, let's get Cañariaco Sur into the mine plan. And of course, it makes great situation of blending with certain parts of Norte that, because there is some arsenic, as we know, in parts of Norte, and we'll pay penalties, no big deal, but this will help the economics, not having to pay as high penalties. And it's also got higher gold. So it'll be a nice kicker for the gold content in the concentrate. So that's what we've been doing, and then realized that we need some, of course, basic met testing to just see how it acts compared to Norte. And it seems to be a simpler deposit, so we don't expect any surprises. We do know that, as I say, there's the only arsenic we can find in the Sur deposit is outside of where the copper is, and that there's higher gold with the copper. Copper grade is a little lower than Norte, but you blend that and you come up with some, we expect anyway, some improved economics.
So would this change the scheduling, or are you looking at both?
It would change the scheduling only in that you would be taking mineralization from Sur. You would not mine Norte independently and then mine Sur. You would do it in conjunction, but with certain areas. You also wouldn't just blend it with the whole thing, because Norte differs throughout the deposit as to grades and what it looks like. So in any case, it'll be a mine plan that combines both.
Okay, and so you've engaged Transmin Metallurgical Consultants of Lima, Peru, to do this met work?
Well, Plenge, they're overseeing it, and then we've chosen Plenge as the local lab to do the work.
Now, will this affect the work that Whittle is doing?
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Because the plan there, as far as I understand, is to they're trying to optimize the project.
Correct. And so this will be part of their optimization process.
Okay.
Doing already has certain assumptions, and we'll just verify those assumptions before things are finalized.
And you guys got to be pretty optimistic about that work that Whittle's doing. They did some work on for McEwen Mining's McEwen Copper, and that came out very positive. And that's sort of their specialty, is to look at projects and optimize them for production purposes.
Exactly. They say on average they can improve NPVs by 30%. And they approached us. We didn't beg them to come work for us. They approached us and said, look, we'd really like to help you with your project. We did all this work for McEwen and other projects. I mean, we've got news releases out that show all the projects they've worked on in the world. And we've talked to them for many years. They've liked Kenya ACO. So they feel they can get us better NPVs and IRRs based on getting into the nitty gritty of production schedules and grind sizes and such.
Well, NPVs are sort of a topic of discussion with Robert Friedland. He doesn't really believe in them, but that IRR number is something that, you know, is potentially a very significant thing because that goes right to your bottom line.
Yes, exactly. And all of these are measuring sticks for value of deposit, because you can have pounds of copper or gold or whatever in the ground, well, ounces of gold, but it's how valuable are they? And so looking at the economics, of course, is the only way to really compare.
But that NPV brings it back to today, and based on a discounted price of today's copper. And really, your project is not something that would go into production for a few years, and therefore, who knows what the price of the gold or copper and gold will be in a few years' time. So that's why I think he's got some issue. Robert Friedland has some issues with companies being sort of shackled by an NPV sometimes.
I see what you mean. No, I absolutely agree. An NPV is always a conservative. Should, you know, it depends on the price of long-term price of copper you're using, and gold, of course. But it basically should be more of a conservative minimum that you're looking at, not a maximum.
But then you're priced based on a conservative estimate of the future rolled back to today.
Right.
Yeah. So, Joey, the other thing that was in your news was an update on the community relations, and that's something that you really, I think, are spearheading for the company, because you've been down there a lot over the last 20 years as this project has been found and now being moved forward quite aggressively. Why don't you tell us about how things are going on the community relations side of things?
Yeah, thank you. So we held a workshop on the last weekend that was to explain all of the findings in our most recent environmental studies that are part of our drilling application. And this is actually a legal part of the legal process that has to happen when you put in your drilling application, that you have to have shared all the information with the locals. And it's not part of the consultative preview or any kind of a yes or otherwise a yes no vote or anything like that. It's just sharing of information and making sure everybody understands. And so it wasn't just our environmental studies that were explained. It was also mining laws, environmental protection laws, regional government. I understand because I wasn't there, but I've seen the photos and listened to the videos. They did a great job of explaining to the locals how they are protected, but also the benefits in taxes and tax dollars that are already getting to them that come from our payments of mineral concession rights. And then, the fact that we haven't been exploiting yet or putting in production. I hate the word exploit, but as we know, that just means producing. And of course, all the things we've been doing to protect the waters when we drill and such. So the people actually commented back that this was the best explanation they've ever had, and that they can now understand better the whole process, and they understand that some of the false things they've been hearing about, we all know that historically mines have contaminated, nobody's denying that, but of course, about the ways that we can protect, and of course our current activities and our activities over the years. So,
and that's a misconception, I think, a lot of times with the mining business, is that yes, there has been some issues in the past, but for all intents purposes, the modern mining is not what causes those issues. A lot of times it's the small scale artisanal type mining that has been more problematic. And these days, the mines are pretty carefully observed and try to avoid those problems of the past.
Well, we legally must, and not that we don't want to, but I mean, there's a lot of legal obligations that unfortunately the informal miners are still, for instance, using mercury to get the gold out. And those kind of things just should not be happening.
And that's usually where the problems is these days with mining, not in a modern industrial mine.
Correct. Especially with new ways of handling tailings in dry stack, commingled facilities such as we plan.
Right. And you touched on something that's kind of close to my heart because I'm Indigenous, and over my career of 30 years in the mining business, I've had to, or not had to, wanted to be involved with the permitting and the community relations with First Nations. And, one of the guiding principles that I've always, advised companies to do is that engagement part, because I believe sometimes Indigenous communities believe, something that's not really accurate about what is going to happen. And they, maybe they hear some things that aren't true. And they kind of also maybe come from a mind frame that, the benefits are going to go outside, and they don't really realize how much benefits stay. You've got to build these things, you've got to employ people, you've got to run these things, and all of this requires employment, and there's taxes and investment, and it's quite significant. And I really believe strongly how important that engagement is. And thank you for touching on that, Joey.
No, and thank you for also mentioning, and I'd like to bring up the fact that, we're very much in an agricultural community, and it's imperative to us that the agriculture improves our activities improve with the people wanting, because everybody doesn't want to work in a mine. And so
Right.
just because there's a mining project in Lambayeque, in Cañares community and district, doesn't mean everybody's life will change direction and be part of a mine. They can have the better agriculture that they've always wanted, the coffee growing, the quinoa, the mushrooms, and any kind of animal herding they want to do. They can have a better life through that because of development, and us able to bring more people in, not us necessarily doing so much, but bringing other people in to help. And so development itself can give them a much better quality of life, not necessarily, as I keep saying, but not directly related to a mine.
Well, the economists have a term for that, Joey, and it's the velocity of money. And so when money comes into an area, people, they have to have a house. And so then they have to have a lawyer. Then they have to have an accountant. Then they can afford more food. And so there's a growth, that velocity of money that happens that's quite impressive. I've moved down to Mexico about 7 years ago, and I've seen it firsthand, Joey, how much velocity of money there is in mining. I lived in a place called Zacatecas, and everywhere you go, the mining guys have nice trucks, they live in nice houses, they send their kids to good schools, they can afford the medicine that they need, and mining is celebrated in many parts of Mexico. It's integral. And so, what you were getting to there is that you may not be starting a store of your own, but the person who starts that store might be the son of or the mother or relative of one of your mining workers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of indirect benefits, but I also like to stress the fact that there can be lots of benefits that aren't related to working to what the mine is doing.
Right.
Both. It's all great. Yeah.
And I know getting back to Robert Friedland, he talks a lot about, everything we do in this world is either comes from mining or comes from agriculture, and agriculture benefits from mining too. Modern agriculture wouldn't be the way it is without machinery and all these benefits that come from mining. So, your agricultural community in the area also benefits from mining, as does the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so what's on the immediate horizon, Joey?
Well, continuing to work on the new optimized PEA out hopefully just after Christmas, next quarter. And then continuing with the community so that they continue to expand their understanding of what we're doing and being involved with what we're doing, and to the extent they want to be, and just increasing our and it's called, we call it shared value. So we all benefit from working together, and as I say, they end up with a better life because we're in the area, but it's not directly related to the mine necessarily. And just so we will need a new community agreement before we start drilling, but we don't need that until we get the permit from the government for drilling. But of course, we'd rather have it sooner than later. So that's our next goal.
Yeah, I remember one of our previous conversations, Joey, you talked about the educational improvement in the area. That's maybe not a direct, but an indirect benefit.
Yes, and actually one of our team on our community relations team, because we have several people from the community who've been to university in Chiclayo and have degrees in mining engineering and agricultural engineering and agronomist and industrial and such. He interpreted the entire workshop into Quechua, which was fantastic because a lot of the people do not speak Spanish. They only speak Quechua. And so we were able to have it, live into their own language, which really helped as well for the communication. So the fact that local people have been to university and have degrees and are now able to come back and work with us is fantastic.
Yeah, and you've watched that over your time there.
That's very correct. When we first arrived there in 2004, not too many people actually had high school education, let alone university.
Wow. It's got to make you feel good, Joey.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be part of.
Excellent. So I guess from a company perspective, that PEA, I know I'll be watching it closely because of that work that Whittle's doing. I cover McEwen Copper very closely, and I saw the benefits there. And so I'm really interested in, you already had a good preliminary economic assessment, but now if you can enhance it with the work that Whittle, that just helps everything.
Absolutely. Just trying to improve everything, continue improving everything, de-risking and improving. Yes.
And you mentioned drilling. What's the focus of the drilling, and when do you ballpark think that might happen?
Well, we're hoping to be able to drill next year. Application will be going in soon. They talk about a 6-month timeline on approvals, but we know it can be much longer. So I don't want to put an exact speculated date out there. But in any case, the government knows how important the project is to northern Peru, and we've drilled there many times before.
Right.
So that's not, it's not the first time we've done an EIA study, and it's not the first time we've drilled. So we're hoping all of that can help the authorities with their approval process a little quicker. Now, as far as where we're drilling, we're allowed 40 platforms, which means, the station you drill from. And from a platform, you can drill as many holes as you want. What we have estimated is about 95 holes and about 47,000 meters in total for our application. Now the application just says 40 platforms max. So we can alter things along the way. Our first initial would be 20,000 meters in a couple of stages. We initially were looking just at Sur and Verde. So Cañariaco Sur has 15 holes, and we know it's a resource. We expect it to get much bigger, and hopefully we can find better grades in various places. And then Verde, lots of mineralization on surface. So I know it's a porphyry deposit, just no idea of size or economics. But in Norte, we did some 3D modeling and found some really interesting areas that have a vertical component to them that have very high copper and no impurities. So we're now going to target into those areas and see how deep they go, but also the configuration of that zone, because it is related to a particular rock type and a particular type of alteration. The rocks there are intrusive, so they have a verticality because they came up through the volcanics. So the different rock types, although they can cross this way, of course, as well, they do have some verticality to them. And we've always been wondering where we could drill deeper for higher grade, and now we've found a great target.
Almost like a breccia pipe?
So it's similar to that. I
Okay.
mean, it's not as explosive as a breccia pipe, but yes, it has the same form because it, and so that's where we'll be drilling as well. Finishing off some geotech drilling that's needed for Norte, but as well combining it with these new targets we have from the 3D model. So there'll be Norte, Sur, and Verde, exciting developments coming.
Perfect. So PEA, future drilling, and more on the permitting process.
Right, correct.
Great. Thanks a lot for joining us, Joey. Did you have a closing comment?
Well, just, we were really thrilled with how well our workshop went. We actually had initially targeted about little over 200 people to invite. And our environmental consultants told us that a workshop is normally closer to, less than 140 to 50 people, and we might be over inviting. We said, well, we want to be very inclusive. There's 48 different little hamlets of groups, but okay, we'll pare it back. So we pared it back to about 140 invited invitations that went out. We really expected to get about 40 to 50 people, because just because you invite somebody doesn't mean they can come or want to come. But to actually get over 300 people was astounding for us. And we heard there was even more people that wanted to come but couldn't get there by, didn't have vehicles and such. And so to get that kind of turnout and to be very, it was very civilized, it was very orderly, and people just wanted to ask a lot of questions, wanted to listen. And so that was really gratifying to know that the community is now really getting engaged in our project. And yeah,
that's fantastic, because they work like the grapevine, they tell two people and so on and so on. And so starting with a 300 base, I'm sure everybody in the community is going to be more informed, and that's really what you're after, right?
That's the key thing, and that'll help us, I think, get out there more and have more local workshops and people coming, because they've heard more and they want some clarifications and such. So yeah. Perfect,
Joey. Thank you. I'm going to close it off.
Thank you. Bye.
So there you go, folks. Alta Copper has a much needed project in the copper space. Size and grade are two very good things, and IRR that's quite handsome in the early preliminary economic assessments that's now being enhanced by Whittle, that's very talented at working on these kind of things. And so it looks like, this is a project that investors that are interested in copper projects that could become future mines will want to do their homework on. As always, I'm not making buying or selling recommendations or price projections. Alta Copper is a sponsor, and they pay me to help get the story out there, and that's primarily what I try to do. And as always, it's important for you to do your homework. Check out the company's website. check out all their corporate presentations, and that will help you become more informed about Alta Copper. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.